the information I have, it sounds like you guys are in liquidation, got a liquidation store, and also real estate on the side.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, cool. So this is exciting for me because our content, what we're kind of going for and what we've started doing is I want to help resellers. My primary focus to help resellers scale quickly is to introduce people that don't know liquidation to liquidation. But then once we've, 'cause liquidation is a great tool. It like scales your reseller business, I think, really quickly. I think it also throws off a lot more capital and cash than other avenues of resale does. But once we have the capital and we've had like a few good months or good years, I want to help people take their capital and reinvest it in real estate. I think a lot of people in liquidation get like excited that they have a good month or like a good deal goes through, and they I don't know what they do with their money, but they buy, like, maybe they buy way more inventory than they should, or they're getting bigger warehouse space, or they're reinvesting in, and it's good up to a certain extent. I look at liquidation as a tool more than I look at it as a long-term end all business. And so
Yeah,
I'm
it's
excited.
just the market's just way too difficult to trust in just liquidation, if that makes sense. Because the biggest thing is you might find loads at 1% one month, and it might be three times as much the next month, and the quality might not be there. So it's like you're paying more and you're throwing away more, So it's kind of a double edged sword both ways there.
100%. Example for us is about a year ago, Home Depot was liquidating across the country. We got in, contract changed hands, right? And we got in with a new contract holder right in the beginning, and they were struggling to move all of the case pack Home Depot. We were getting fire pits. It was fire pits and patio furniture was the first deal. We were in at 1%, and we moved over 200 trailer loads in 3 or 4 months at paying 1% of retail. Money handle, I mean, we'd never made money so fast. Fast
Correct.
forward, right? 6 months goes by, they have a handle on the contract, same product today. After I helped you and I moved all this stuff for you while you were struggling, now I have to pay 15-20%. I got to pay market price for the stuff.
Yep.
Doesn't work for me anymore. That program's gone. We move on, we pivot quickly, but that's kind of the thing is we anticipate when a good program comes in, I just go ahead and plan on like maybe a month, 2 months if we're lucky, and then just go ahead and start looking for something else because
100%. Ride it while it's hot, and then after that, it's like, okay, what's the next best thing everyone's gonna look for again? You know what I mean? Like you're
exactly.
constantly changing. Like when we first started, we were only home improvement stuff. Your Lowe's, your Home Depot. Back when Lowe's wasn't horrible, horrible. So we were there, and then we switched to Home Depot, and then kind of as we got going, we got into like some Land's End and some Target, and then eventually we wound up in like baby stuff, and that's been real good for us. But like, so we're kind of all over the board, actually. It's just whatever we can find at a good enough deal that we think we can turn over, essentially.
For sure. So how long have you been doing, how are you selling? Do you guys have retail locations, or
Yep,
is it
yep.
wholesale?
So actually, the two buildings behind me in the photos are the two buildings we redid actually. So
Okay.
we started in well, take that back. Rewind. We would have started in October of 19. My sister came up to me and she's like, "Hey," she's like, "I heard you can buy a semi load of merchandise. Are you interested?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm interested. Like, what's this going to cost me?" So I had rental properties at the time, just me. So I was like, "Yeah, that'd be awesome." She's like, so we looked at that. We bought one, and at the time, we just rented a classroom in a town, probably 20 minutes from us, where we got it super cheap. The guy was only charging us $250. We knew him. He's like, "I'll get you a good deal. You can figure out this works in 6 months. We'll adjust your rate. You know what I mean? If you can pay me." And I'm like, "Okay." So he was super intrigued, and we did all that. We made it out there for like 6, 7 months, which it worked, but it didn't. We had no browsing history. We just created a Facebook page, listed everything on Facebook, and that's how we made our business. If you wanted something, you either met me there or I picked it up and met you, so you really had to work for it. But at the same time, it was the only way we could see by keeping our costs low. Is kind of how we did that first hurdle. Then it would have been in February of 2020. We actually bought these two buildings together. And we used the bigger building to store our stuff in and kind of sell it while we rehab the smaller building. That was the plan. And then to see how long that was going to work. Well, the bigger building of the two was an old school, and it had 4 classrooms per floor. So it worked, it was one of those like, you come in and browse, but the problem was is we'd have pop-up hours like, hey, this weekend we're here from 4 to 8 Saturday and 12 to 5 on Sunday. And we just share it on our Facebook page. If you've seen it, you've seen it. Otherwise, you'd have to shoot us a direct message like, hey, Josh, I'm interested in that vanity you have. Can I come and get it tomorrow? And I'd be like, yep, let's make a time and we'd meet. This was at least in our town. When you're starting out, you got to do whatever it takes to make a sale. You know what I mean? Like you're doing anything and everything. So while we did that, we realized, hey, this building works. But the problem was if you came in to browse, I might have vanities in 3 different classrooms just because that's where I had space for it. And that's where I set it down kind of thing. Um, we really, we like price stuff, but didn't price stuff, if that made sense. Like, so you might get one price from me, you might get a different price from my sister. If my brother's around, you might get a different price. So we made it work, to say the least. So
Yeah.
that was probably about 2 years we did that. Um, and we owned our own building. So it's one of those things like you're not paying rent, you're not paying rent's always tough, because you're paying a significant amount of money and you're never going to get that back.
Yeah.
So we used all of the stuff we could to rehab the smaller building into 10 apartments. So we got that done. It would have been the end of 21. That building done. And then we're like, okay, what's next? So we kind of sat around, we waited, and one of the guys actually came in shopping and he's like looking around. He's like, oh, what are you guys doing? I'm like, oh, we're looking for another building, a bigger one. And he's like, well, what are you looking for? I got like a 5,000 square foot building. I'm like, oh no, I'm like, I need something bigger than that. And he's like, well, the only other one I got's 20,000 square foot. And I was like, I'd be interested. So we took a look at it and we actually bought it. I sold some of my other properties to kind of make it cash flow and the rental, it was when the housing market was hot. So it actually benefited. So we bought an actual resale store location, I guess you'd call it. And then we moved everything from that school building to the store where we're currently at in Dubuque here. And then after that got done, it took a year and a half to kind of get all the building plans done. And because that second building's 18 apartments. So to kind of get everything in line, get everything kind of going, and then start doing that. And then we did that one. So we have a location. We've been in this location since December of 21. So, and it's one of those things, you get a 20,000 square foot building, you're like, oh, this is plenty big. And now you're just like, today you're like, man, why didn't I get something bigger? So now we're at the point now where it's like, do we look at moving again? Or is that something where you got to bring in shelves or get creative or go up instead of, into a new one? So that's unfortunately where we're currently at.
Yeah. It's funny, you said the same thing I've said, I can't tell how many times. We've started off in my parents' basement is where we started. We did something similar to, I think, similar to we did a pop-up yard sale. My mom
Yep.
she still owns a private school right on a busy highway. So we would have yard sale. I use the term yard sale loosely.
Yep.
'Cause we would have 18 wheelers dropping pallets of product. We had eight people had to work this. It was an event. We were running 20 to $30,000 a Saturday. It wasn't a yard sale.
Yep.
But that's how we ran for the first, 2 years. We had 6 to 10 of these sales a year. And we did eBay and stuff at the same time. But we got our first warehouse. It was 1,500 square feet. We moved to 15,000 square feet, and I walked in going, "There's no way we'll ever fill this up." And we rented that one. Fast forward, we bought 32,000 square feet. Never fill this up. A year after we bought that, I rented 150,000 square feet. I'll never fill this up. 2 years after, we had a Target subcontract back when COVID hit and all the Target case pack was coming in. A month before we ended that lease, the Target contract ended, and we had 200 tractor trailers of product in that building, and I couldn't fit any more. Like there was no more. And in that moment, I started this trend of the 32,000 square feet. We leased that out to a soccer complex now. I bought another 25,000 square foot building. I thought I was gonna, do our thing in there. I went, no, I don't. Like we scaled up, and now we're scaling down in the sense of like a floor plan.
Yep.
Our highest sales were back in COVID. We had the big space. We did $25 million in sales, and we were busy. I mean, we're busy now, but like it was balls to the walls. And I got done with that year, and I was like, That's a lot of money that ran through our bank account. And I looked at the bank account, I'm like, doesn't feel like that much money went through. And so, there's when you when you can do gross sales, and I've been getting hammered on some Facebook pages trying to explain to people this week, but gross sales don't mean net profit, and you gotta decide what's more important to you. And we've decided in the last 2 years, like, I don't really care what the gross sale number is. I really care how the bank account grows. And the bank account now grows bigger than it did when we were doing $25 million a year, but we're doing half that number. And some years we do less.
Yeah,
Um,
a lot of the headaches, I'm sure, gone, essentially.
and that's the thing. I have less employees on hand. I own all of my properties now. We don't need the spaces. There's a limit to the size building that I'm prepared to buy. I prefer 10,000 square feet and under for our investment properties. I now own two buildings that are over 25,000 square feet, but I don't really care to go any bigger because then you really start having a like specialty renters. They're great when you get
When it's
those.
full.
Yeah, but I've got a friend of mine. He bought a 300,000 square foot building for his wholesale and liquidation business. And I was like, who was in there before? And Duracell was in that business before, that building before. I'm like, who's going to be in that building after you're done? That was my concern, is like, I know you need the space today.
Yep. But when you leave, like, and that's our biggest thing is, so we had a beer distributor in our building. So
Mhm,
it's like, okay, if we go, is somebody going to be willing to take that? Or am I just going to sit there and pay for nothing? Keep paying
yeah.
to sit empty. You know what I mean? The taxes don't go away. You still got to have the power on and all that other stuff. Like, it's just not going to go away on its own kind of thing. So that's the biggest thing, especially when you get in those buildings that large. Like you said, it's hard to find somebody to go in and take a risk. It's something smaller, 10,000 square foot. You can fill that up fairly quickly, but the bigger ones is a little tougher.
Yeah, it definitely gets a little more, you get a little more nervous when you have the bigger mortgage on the bigger space and you're hoping for a tenant. We got lucky, with our 30,000 square foot. It just so I put it up for lease while we were still in there. And I said, if someone wants to rent my building for my number, I'll move. I can do liquidation anywhere. We do mostly closeouts for, bankruptcies or dying brands. We don't need a lot of space. We bring a deal in, we count it, we make sure it's accurate before we sell it. We ship it back out. We don't we don't have customers in our building
Yep.
unless you really want to see a product. Sure, come down, but we don't have showrooms. We're working right now out of 7,000 square feet. That's all I need.
Yep. It comes
Um,
and goes just as quick.
yeah, we've changed our business to how we wanna operate it. I mean, it's changed. We started off selling we started off buying pallets. We graduated to selling pallets and brokering truckloads. And the cool thing about liquidation, I think, is you can really make it whatever you want it to be. If you wanna have a retail location, you can do that. If you wanna broker trucks, the barrier to entry on a lot of this stuff is fairly low. You don't need a ton of capital to get started. Um, I think you should have money if you're gonna broker trucks. A lot of these
Yeah.
guys are brokering trucks without any money in their bank, and that gets me a little nervous just for the guy that's, a potential issue. But theoretically, you don't need the capital
Yeah,
to
you
do
see
it.
the issues all the time on the liquidation page and people bitching and, oh, he didn't make it right. And it's like, well, I see both sides. I'm like, okay, that guy there, he probably didn't get told what's in his load. He's not going to get compensated. So now you want to get compensated from that guy. It's an extremely gray area, because that's why I was like, man, I'm glad that's not me, because all it takes is one guy to throw a fit. And it's like, shoot, because I know the markup's not high on those. When you're brokering just a load, for $500 or whatever, you mess up a couple of them, or you get a bad customer, and it's like, I got to swallow this pill, or that's going to be everywhere on these pages.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like, you have that $500 markup, which is, it's getting worse on that side. When I was brokering heavy, it wasn't unheard of to be able to knock up 1,000, $1,500, which you have enough room to make things right.
Yep.
A lot of times it's not the broker's fault. And I mean, we can speak from firsthand experience. We would do the research, we would vet the contract holders of the suppliers, and a load goes. A lot of times, I don't think it's the load is bad. I think the buyer has an expectation that the broker didn't always put out there. I mean, we would undersell loads, and the buyer would still be like, "This isn't right." And I'm like, "No, it's exactly what I told you it was. I think you just expected way more, and then now
Yep.
you want to count. Now that, like, I'm gonna blast you in the groups has gotten." to be the fastest way to get a credit or a refund.
Yeah, and
And
that's the thing, and people know that. You're like, "Oh, man, I gotta make this guy happier. I gotta make this go away." And next thing you know, there's 40 screenshots posted, and it's like a world-class drama, you know what I mean, that you're reading through, and it's like, you just read it because 'cause you're just like, I got nothing better to do," you know what I mean? So you're reading it, and it's like, "Man, there's a lot of miscommunication here that could have been solved," you know what I mean, like, both ways, you know? So it's like, I'm glad that's not me.
yeah, it's definitely a tough part of the industry to be in. We're super happy to get out of it, especially the customer return side, because what we deal with now. I sell somebody 10,000 purses. What's your problem? Unless there's your count's wrong. There's not the only issue you can possibly have is you couldn't sell the purses. That's not my fault. You can't
Yeah,
get mad
that's
at me.
not.
It's a bad buy on you, whatever. Now, if your count's wrong, I can easily make that. Like I can make that right. But when you have a customer return, we talked about Lowe's a little bit earlier on. You get a bad Lowe's truck. What do you want me to do about it? I have a
Yeah.
$300 markup on it. The load's
I didn't
trash.
see this truck, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, there's nothing can be done with that.
yeah, they got right before we got out, they got really bad. I wanna say it was, like, maybe 21, 22, and I'm not kidding you. They got to the point where you're throwing half of them in the dumpster, and it's like, what do you know what I mean? Like, you understood it. Yeah, they sold them to you cheap, but, like, at the same time, now you gotta pay to get rid of it, on top of it. Like, not only is it bad, like, it's real bad.
Yeah, but you had to factor in, like, I mean, when we were buying Lowe's, and so we've been using Lowe's in one of our retail locations today, and it's surprisingly gotten a lot better.
Okay.
It's a lot more expensive. It's 5 grand a load.
Yep.
Where we were paying $1,000 a truck back 2021, I guess it
Yeah, I think
was.
we're like 1,500 bucks, 2,000 in there, so you got what you paid for.
Yeah, but then back then you could still, like, we were buying blocks of 100, right? Because we were brokering a lot of them, and you could still get a powder, like, there was still power tool, like, solid
Yep.
power tool pallets on those trucks.
Yep.
Today, you get some power. I mean, all the retailers doing a way better job of processing this stuff out. It's gonna get, it's gonna continue on, and
Yep.
that's why I tell people, everybody's hunting the same stuff, and they're always hunting the top, like, the best. They want the best whatever, consumer electronics, whatever it is. And I'm like, everybody fighting for that. Why not go to a category like home improvement? Because I don't care how busy everything else gets. Kitchen cabinets never sell for very much. Like, we can always source them extremely cheap.
Mhm.
We do a lot of closeouts. It's surprising how many kitchen cabinet closeouts we get offered, and we typically pay between $5 and $15 a cabinet for kitchen cabinets. The markup's amazing because wholesale
Yeah.
I could get 25 and I can sell somebody trailer loads. Retail wise, you're getting an average of 100. And then we get to double dip because we put them in our renovations.
Yep.
And that's something I'm sure you can talk on a little bit, is how much money do you think you had? 21 apartments on the big one, I think you said, and then it was a 10-unit apartment on the smaller one?
18 and 10.
18 sounds okay, I was close.
Yep.
Um, how much of those renovations were you able to use product from your loads?
So in the first building, we were a little bit more on the green side, on being newer in the liquidation. So we were able to use a lot of flooring. It was kind of hit or miss, because back then it was whatever Lowe's or Home Depot sent you. We didn't have a direct flooring person we could get flooring from, or we weren't in contact with Mohawk, or we weren't in contact with any of this stuff. So it was a lot of flooring, toilets, and then vanities is what we really took advantage of on those ones. And then as we kind of got into the second one, we were really able to use the flooring, which we use it to our advantage. So what we did was we'd order enough, we'd order 10,000 square foot, and people, they like a sample, but they like to see it down. So we'd throw it in 4 or 5 units, take plenty of pictures, use that. And then we were able to get, more kitchen cabinets, obviously the vanities. We were able to grab some faucet load, a couple pallets of faucets, where we were able to get most of all of our kitchen faucets for sure. For some reason, bath faucets, I don't know, maybe you see them more than we do, but they just seem real hard to come by, more or less, versus a kitchen faucet. Call it a coincidence. I don't really know. A lot of all the ceiling fans and stuff like that we got from both properties for the most part. The new building for sure, because you're able to just buy a pallet of them, more or less. Um, I'm trying to think what else. Even like the blinds, we got a lot of that stuff. We'd pick up a half a load, a whole semi load of blinds is a lot of freaking blinds. We
It's
made that mistake once, and then I was like, oh man. And then the worst part is another guy talked us into doing a load, and he'd take half. And I was like, are you sure? Like, do you know how many blinds are in this? He's like, listen, man, I got a lot of rental properties. I'm like, okay. And he took half a load, and he comes he bought them like 2 years ago, and he still comes into this day and goes, hey man, I still got a ton of those blinds. If you ever need some, just let me know. And I'm like, I tried telling you, you know what I mean? Like, but it was nice to be able, like I said, to be able to use that stuff. And even now we even have avenues to get, lumber or insulation was another thing we were able to get a semi load of, insulation and hot water heaters for the second building, to be able to buy a full load. And we did that kind of strategically where we bought the load kind of a couple months ahead, tried to sell in house. And then obviously we kind of used what was left. And then we actually bought a whole semi load of trim, just 1x4 basic primed trim. And that was nice to be able to trim out, a whole 18 plex. Obviously, you save a substantial amount of money, doing that. And then obviously you make it on the back end when you're reselling it too. So it's nice to know, like, hey, I'm going to burn through some of this and then be able to show pictures to show people, like, hey, this is what it looks like when it's installed, kind of thing. So we were able to do that and try to take advantage from not only using it, but kind of like a marketing perspective, I guess.
Yeah, no, for sure. We do the same thing. If we need flooring in a house, we go ahead, we buy the whole load, and we typically make enough that we still profit off the truck, and the pallet or two that we need for the house is covered and paid for, and there's no cost to us besides the labor to install it. And I think that's I tell people all the time. I'm like, I push real estate and liquidation together for a couple reasons. One, I think a lot of people in the liquidation industry, like especially for me, I want to feel my like investments, I guess. Like it's tangible. I can go, I can see it. I feel like I have a little more control over it versus, we invest in stocks or mutual funds or whatever. We still do that, but I feel better when I can drive up to a property and go, okay, I know how much that's worth and how much I have in it.
Yep.
And then just the liquidation aspect of it, it works hand in hand because if you're resellers, you can resell the stuff you don't need. You're getting like so much better price on the stuff for the properties. It goes hand in hand. That's why I push people. I'm like, if you're in this business long enough, start developing clients that buy the kitchen cabinets. It's a two-edged sword, right? Because not only if you start getting into home improvement, which we've been pushing a little bit more this year, we develop the clients that we make money on, but you'd be surprised how many people come into one of our retail stores going, "Hey, I've got a house for sale. Do you want to buy it?" Because they know at this point that that's what we're into. So we get so many leads from that aspect as well.
Yep.
It's just,
And
yeah,
I use even the real estate in terms of kind of cleaning up some inventory, if that makes sense. So as you flip a house or whatever, you're like, ooh, we've kind of sat on these lights because our stuff's all labeled and dated. So it's like, hey, we've had this for quite a while. Like we tried to do a deal on it. Like instead of giving it away or we donate a lot of stuff to Habitat too, kind of trying to keep that good, upkeep and image with them as well, but trying to use it in your apartments or a flip house. And then we have a couple guys too that like to come in that flip properties, and they're like, hey, what have you kind of sat on a little bit that we can work something out and get a little better deal on. So it's nice to have those guys as well that help you kind of turn over some of the stuff that's kind of been sitting there, taking up space essentially.
for sure. You get to put in higher end units than you normally would. I mean, you gotta be careful sometimes because, uh, like, I went ahead, I found some on Marketplace. I needed stoves and fridges. I was like, "Well, I'll buy a load of stoves and fridges." And I've been pricing them out, and for whatever reason in our like, in the industry, it's all the expensive fridges and stoves, so even when we buy them at 25%, 30%, we're still paying, like, $500 a unit.
Yep.
So found this guy on Marketplace. I don't know if he's stealing them or what, but it was like 189 for gas stoves and it was $200 for full size fridges. I don't know. I don't ask
You're
questions,
like,
but if
whatever. I don't ask. Sometimes you don't ask questions. You just take it.
you just take it and then that's it. And I'm like, I can't source it for that because
No.
I can't put it's affordable housing, it's Section 8 housing. I'm not gonna go put a 500 or $3,000 fridge in there, even if it only cost me 500.
Yep.
Now on the flip side, we've sourced these really nice Kohler $800 vanities that we paid $50 for. Well, I can't find a vanity for $50. even the
No.
cheapest one. So now those Section 8 houses have, $1,000 vanities in them that they never would otherwise, which is
Yep.
the nice thing to be able to do sometimes for people. You get to put some higher end furnishings in these properties. We've got some short-term rentals also, and it's really easy for us to constantly be replacing, cookware where, someone else might try to hang on to that cookware for 3 years. We say 6 months,
Yep.
and we
Cookware, bedding, stuff like that, you can really turn
100%.
that stuff over because you can get it at an affordable price, you know what I mean? Where you can, "Well, this bed's been 6 months or 8 months, it's showing a little wear, let's just get a new one over here." You know what I mean? Let's get it out of here.
100%. You said something, and I don't wanna I don't wanna pass on it because 'cause I'm curious. You say you label and date, so I'm guessing you have a system in your store. I'm curious what your system is.
We're not super efficient, let's say that. So basically, somebody's been trying to talk us into like an actual scanner that scans into your system and goes in there, and I'm like, here's the thing, most of our loads we buy, it's not case pack. So it's like one or two off and it's gone and I might not see it again. So I'm like, as far as going super in depth into something like that, I'm like, I don't know if it'd really benefit. So what we do is, and it's probably not the most efficient way, but as a load comes in, we obviously open the product if we can, check it, assess damage, and then we scan it with our phones to Home Depot, Target, wherever we bought it from. We essentially see what it sells for at that store. And then when it's at that store, then we take 35% off the top if it's in great condition. If it's a vanity with a kicked inside or something, it might be 60, 55, 50. We just kind of work our way down. And we try to note the damages on there. And we actually got a labeling gun off of Amazon that you can just, you twist the little knobs on it, set your price, and then it's actually got a date right on there. So we try to keep it within a year. My sister she does a really good job. She's a computer person. So she keeps a lot of stuff on her computer like, hey, this Target load came in bulk, and when it gets to that year mark, either A, we're looking to sell it just above what we bought it for, or B, looking to offload it to like a habitat, or we actually do a lot of work with donations in the community, especially if we get case pack clothes. What we'll do is we'll have all the nonprofits, schools, whatever, kind of fill out a form, say, hey, these are the sizes I'm looking for. And then what we do is we just kind of take those boxes and divide it up. We bought a Target closed load couple years ago, and it was heavy case pack. It was supposed to be a Target load, and it came heavy case pack clothes, which you win, you lose, no big deal. So we sat on it, sold through it, and I mean, we'd have 20, 30 boxes of the same size 4T pants.
Yeah.
So we just let the nonprofits and all that stuff fill it out, and then we just used it heavy for marketing. We, as the people came in to pick it up, some people got 2 or 3 boxes. There was some that got 20 or 30 just because they checked all the ones we had available.
Yeah.
And we just took pictures with them and blasted it on our Facebook page and kind of everything else. And that's the only real advertising we do. And that's probably one of our downfalls is in this industry, it's hard to figure out how you advertise and how you get your word of mouth out there. Like, obviously what's going on, but to the average person, how do you explain what you have and that it's not garbage? A lot of people hear that and they're like, oh, well, you just got the throwaways. And I'm like, no, it's not really throwaways. It might be last year's model. It might be spring clothes that I bought in the fall. They just don't want to hold it to the spring again. It's hard to explain that unless they come into my store. When they come in the store, I can explain that all day long. But it's like, besides that, it's like, how do you try to get that out there? So we try to take advantage of like, giving that stuff away. And then a lot of people share that and kind of help push our word of mouth and give us a good publicity, obviously, from that side too. So
Yeah. No, you make a good point. I mean, I think, and it's gotten better down here. You said Dubuque. What state is that?
Iowa, we're
What
right on the corner. So like I could throw a rock and hit Illinois or Wisconsin from right where we're at.
okay, so I was in Iowa maybe 2 months. I have I have a terrible sense of time. It
Yep.
was this year. I flew in to Illinois, car, and it was really close to the Iowa line. So it was like
Yep.
20 minutes. I came right into Iowa. I can't for the life of me remember.
Did you go to Galena?
No, it was a small town in Iowa. It was 2 hour I think it was 2 hours from the airport. It wasn't I don't think it was Chicago. Maybe it was Chicago. I don't remember. I came I was man, it's gonna bother me now. The craziest thing, I flew out there, I liquidated 1,000 e-bikes. Uh,
Okay.
there was a car dealership in Iowa, and they had bought they were a distributor or registered dealer for E-Series. It's a Harley Davidson, manufactured e-bike.
Okay.
Um, these are $4,000, e-bikes, and they're selling them in Iowa, and I'm like, "Well, I don't know about the location, if that maybe was their downfall, because Florida, sure, everybody's on I don't know if any people.
You ride them year round.
Yeah, like, where they were, I was like, "I don't know where you're riding a bike to get to anywhere." There was very little thing there's, like, one gas station. Man,
And like in our town in Iowa, it's super hilly.
yeah.
So what kind of mileage are you going to get on an e-bike going up and down these hills? Like, are you only going to get one ride out of it, or is it going to be kind of economical, kind of thing? So it kind of defeat the purpose if the battery's always dead.
Yeah, and these were nice. These were, they were on the Facebook group. It's so funny, and this is another point, but, like 20 it was 28 miles an hour top speed, 120-mile range. They were intense units. We sold them too cheap. We always do. But it's funny, I saw them. We sold them to a few guys, and then I saw them make the rounds on the Facebook groups. I don't know if you noticed that. I've seen some deals that cycle that we sold 2 years ago that they pop up every now and then. Like, they never actually make it to, like, an end user. They just
Yep.
keep getting sold to, like,
They lose a couple each time, and the next guy takes them, and then they lose a couple.
yeah, it's like yeah, it's a game of musical chairs, who's gonna wind up with the crappy deal
Literally,
sometimes.
we've done that before where we actually got on, like, I think it was Home Shopping Network. How the hell we got a Home Shopping Network auction, I have no freaking idea. But my sister, she found a good deal and she bought it, and it was a ton of NFL sports merchandise, which was cool and all because, like, around here we sell the Bears, we sell the Vikings, we sell the Chiefs, we sell the local teams. But
Yeah.
the problem is when you get 20 cases of Houston Texans blankets, yeah, they're super nice and you can sell them cheap, but people only need so many for their camper when they don't care about what team's on it. The rest you just need to, you need fandom, so we got a ton of those, ton of Atlanta Falcons. So it's like all of a sudden you started getting these teams that are a long ways away, and it's like you start trying to throw them in the groups and you start trying to, all right, we did what we can, and now you're trying to push it back out to the community and trying to see if they can do it. But it's so hard to find something like that. So you just hope you get lucky and the right person sees it at the right time is kind of what you hope for.
Yeah, and that's super accurate. I think sometimes, like, it's that right person. Yeah, we get some weird items that are very specialty,
Yep.
and I get customers call me, they're like, "How do I price this?" And I'm like, "What is it?" It's one of those items. I don't It could retail for 1,000. I don't care if you list it for 100 or 800. It'll take the exact same amount of time to sell, because
Yep.
the guy that's gonna buy that is gonna pay 800, and he's damn sure gonna pay 100. It's just, do
You just
you
gotta wait to
wait?
find them.
You gotta find them.
You just
Yeah,
gotta
and
wait till he sees it. You gotta plan on setting it out there. And we deal with that too a lot of times is, you come across something and it's like, man, it sucks to sit on that space. And the problem is, we're family run here. So me, my brother, my sister, Josh, Jenna, Jace makes up the triple J. And then, like, my wife's out front right now. My sister's husband comes down. My brother's a farmer. He's usually here. Dad's usually here. But the problem is like a couple of us see things like, hey, it's got to sit. Like, it'll sell. Like, just give it a minute. It's priced right. Like, and then my sister-in-law, the one who found you guys, she's get it out the door. And I'm like, that's cool and all, but you got to realize, like, we still paid for this. We paid to unload this. We paid maybe to put it together. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of factors that go into this. And she's just like, yeah, but it's in my way. We got to get it gone. And I'm like, I get that. Just give it a minute. You know what I mean? Like, there's those items where you're going to make your money. It's just going to take a sec.
that's funny. I think I probably relate more to her because I'm that way. I can't stand the same stuff sitting. Like, I can't stand seeing stuff sit. I think that's one reason. We have the retail location mainly because we were in between tenants. I had a tenant move out. It sat for 3 months. I was like, well, we can just throw a retail store in there. Like, we have access to the product. We just need some employees and a little bit of marketing. And so now I'm stuck with that. I have that operates. It pays the rent for that store. That's all that matters. It pays, like, I charge it market rent. It can afford it. Cool. Then we opened a bin store for the same reason. I bought a nice building, got a great deal. I was like, let's throw the bin store in there. When we get a tenant, we'll move it out. And that's kind of what we've started looking at with the commercial space is if we don't get a tenant soon, we'll open a business in it.
Fill it up
Liquidation
for
is
now and
yep,
move it
stick
when
a
it's
company
time.
sign in there, and then it's the same, it's we have the upper hand. If somebody wants the space, great. This is my number. If you don't want to pay that, that's fine. We have, this is operating just as well.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't like the retail store because I'll see something in the corner that's been there for forever. I like my focus is liquid, like we do closeout deals. So like deal comes in, my job is to move it as quickly as possible, and that's what I do. And
Yep.
I can't, I can't stand clutter. I don't know. You
Well,
get it
and at the
happen
end of the like we've talked about that too, because it's like the main thing is own having a store itself, you got to deal with a lot of customers. Having, what you're doing, you're quickly selling it to one or two people. You only got the chance that one or two people are going to be mad. Like in our instance, like we get a lot of stuff from Wayfair too a lot of times, and Wayfair can be like Lowe's, honestly. You might get a load where you're like, man, what the heck? You get a lot of one of two boxes or two of three, and it's like, man, this is garbage. So, and a lot of that stuff comes so big that I don't want to put it together because now you can't haul it. So a lot of times, you get somebody reaching back out and they're like, hey, we got this home and we're missing this, this, and this. So obviously we always do what it takes to make it right. First thing we always do is offer to bring it back to us. If they want to keep it, hey, we're going to need $40 for the parts. Perfect. Like, do you want me to Venmo it to you? How do you want it? But it's definitely tougher on the customer side for sure, having a whole store versus, quick selling or, unloading quickly to fewer people.
for sure. Oh no, there's definitely challenges with both, and the customer service aspect of retail is tough. And then we made a good point with the furniture. It's a catch 22. It always seems to sell better when it's put together, like
100%.
assembled, but your labor costs. It's a tough one, right? Because you're paying guys $20 an hour or whatever it is to
Yep.
assemble a bed, and that bed retails for 300, so you're selling it for 150. So, but it took the guy 2 hours to put it together. So now really getting 110 out of it. I
Yep.
paid 20%, so I paid 60. Now I'm only making $50. That's if I sold it for 150, but I know,
Yeah. Nobody haggled you or anything else.
yeah. So it's
Yeah,
like,
we got lucky recently where we came across a few different loads of full pallets of the same item.
yep,
So obviously we put one together and set it there, and then we sell it straight unassembled. Like
yeah,
no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And they're like, a couple of the items, they're like, hey, well, we want to pay for it to be assembled. And we're like, okay, well, we you have a mental note kind of how long it's going to take. And it's like you said, hey, paying our people $20 an hour, like took 4 hours, it's going to cost you another $80. Well, I'm
yeah,
not paying that. And I'm like, I'm just really not sure. You know what I mean? Like what the theory is here. Like I don't work for free. You don't work for free. Well, it took my husband like 6 hours to put it together. And I was like, I don't know what to tell you, but here they are buying a second and third of the same item. You know what I mean? So you're getting a good deal from me. It's just that fine line of trying to keep everybody happy, and it's tough.
yeah. No, the retail customers is tough to keep happy. I almost posted something the other day, and it was to the extent of we have one of our stores is a bin store.
Yep.
And one of the benefits of I've been in the industry for so long, I've got some access to some really great stuff at a really good price. So we own the building. So there's a lot of positives. So we have our top dollar day is $6, right? A lot of guys, I think the majority of the industry now is 8, 10, 12 in that
Yeah. The
range.
one in our town, the one in our town's 8, I think now. Might even be
Yeah.
10. I think it might be 10 and then 8.
Yeah, they keep going up. So we wanted to we're also a 3-day store because I believe
Even
the
better.
bin store should be an event, not a store. I see a few people get on here and they talk about that there's 6-day bin store. I'm like, there's a fine line between a bin store and just throwing all your shit in a bin and calling it a bin store, and that's how you sell. For me, when we started, and I've seen bin stores come and go, it was always supposed to be an event. Like we have a crowd of 200 on opening day, like, it's exciting, then it's 6:42, Sunday, we're done. But I don't know what it is, if it's a full moon or if it's what it gets in people's, like, craw some weekends, but we'll have weekends where they're just bitter. They're just bitter people, and I'm like, "We're selling you stuff for $6. We do
Yeah.
we open up on Friday, we do line giveaways. I give away AirPods in line. On Saturdays, I buy everybody in line food. If we have a food truck out there, if you're in line when we open, I buy you food, no cost. You don't have to purchase anything. And then we give away a TV every Sunday with a raffle ticket. No, you don't buy the ticket. We just give you a ticket with your purchase. So
Yep.
like we do everything we can to make you happy, and you still bitch at
And they
me
still
for,
complain.
"Oh, I didn't get what I came for." Well, no duh, Sharon. You came on $2 day and all the karaoke machines sold on
Yeah.
Friday.
Or
Like,
they waited 2 hours after you opened and thought they were still gonna be there. You didn't wanna deal with the line, and it's like, yeah, but that's why they were there, you're there
yeah.
for the same things.
Or they can, my favorite is, "There's just too many people here." I'm like, "Well, no, of course it's $6. We've got, we sell $200 items for $6. There's
Yep.
gonna be other people here, like, it's
Yeah,
not
there's gonna be
Macy's."
other people that see that and want that.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, yeah, you can't, I learned really quickly. I started when I was 17, and it affected me a lot when I was young, right? Like, I gotta make everybody happier. I don't wanna upset anybody, and you don't wanna upset people. That's not my intention. I don't want anybody leaving my store unhappy, but I've realized there's some cases you're just not gonna make that person happy, and I refuse to, like, to try
Yep.
after a certain degree. It's just let them go.
Yep.
Somebody else will come back and they'll spend 3 times as much, and that person, they were it's usually the customers that are, like, spending 2, $3. It's never the guy spending, and I've found that, as we've pivoted and adjusted, I find people complain at me less when they spend 6 figures than the people that spend $6 spend with me, which is wild. You would think you'd have bigger headaches on the bigger customers, but it's just, I can tell, like you're buying. I don't know who you're buying your product from, but I can guarantee you, just from this, 30-minute conversation, you're probably one of their favorite customers, because the few things I've heard you say about like a bum truck, or, your case pack was heavy in clothing, it is what it is. Like, you don't get very many of those types of customers in liquidation that
Yeah.
just with the
I
punch
mean,
up.
the problem you gotta know going in is this is the industry you're in. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta know that in any load, you could get a bad one, But you can know in any load, like, we've gotten a Home Depot load that we bought in for next to nothing, and all of a sudden you started opening brown boxes and there's 20 Milwaukee tools in there, So it's like, you're gonna get that too. You take the good with the bad, and then you just know, and you hope that, if something's really bad, like we've had a few issues where we bought in, manifested loads, and obviously, if the worst one we had, I think, was 14 of the top 20 items weren't there. And it was sold as a manifested load, and and they made it right, but it's like you feel bad complaining, but you're like, listen, I'm not gonna lie, I probably wouldn't have bought this load if I'd have known all those things were gonna be there. But it's here. I'll make it work. Well, can you help me at least somewhere along the line? You know what I mean? Like,
Correct.
and they're like, oh yeah, that's our fault, And like I said, you make do. There's no point in continuing to complain. It is what it is. It's not gonna get any better, and you just try to make it better the next time. Obviously, watch out a little better.
Yeah, you absorb it and you move on. I think, when we first started, Kmart was still like one of the primary retailers that we were getting loads from. And in our area, this was 2016, I guess, 2014 maybe. It wasn't like mainstream. We were still trying to explain to people what pallets were. So we were introducing it into our area. Um, so I don't know where I was going with this. I just like completely blanked out. Oh, the expectations. Somewhere along the way, everybody understood for a good pre-COVID. I feel like everybody understood that this is liquidation. You take the good with the bad. You take the licks like a man, for lack of a better, and you move on. And I got screwed on that one, man. You didn't like it. Just that's what it was. Now there's some egregious. Obviously, there's some like scenarios where you just flat out screwed me. I'm not talking about that. Today, I feel like there's a disconnect where people are in liquidation, but they want to treat it like it's wholesale,
Yeah.
and they're two different industry, like two different businesses. We're in liquidation because we're solving problems. The problem being customer returns and where does it need to go? We got to fix something.
Yep.
Or we're liquidating for somebody that, well, they went out of business because they couldn't sell their inventory. Well, why couldn't they sell it? Well, I'm going to buy it. I'm going to find out why they couldn't sell it. And sometimes I find out that I'm not as good a salesman as I thought, and this really is a crappy product. And
We've all
sometimes I
been
will,
there. We've all
yeah,
been there.
but wholesale is different. I bought 20 of this. I paid a case pack price of 50% of the retail. I'm selling it at retail price. I think I don't know where it happened, but, like, I think people like, I paid 20% and, it's 20% of it's broken. I used to get so many phone calls. This was my favorite. The load would show up. So, my train of thought was, if I sold somebody a truck and I didn't get a phone call the day that it landed, it's a good truck. Like, it's solid. I'll call them in 2 days and I'll chat about it because I know it's
Yep.
good. If I get a call the morning of, and I would always get a call like when it was bad or when they thought it was bad, I'd get a call. I'm unloading this truck. It's all trash. And I'm like, you processed that whole truck in an hour? I was like, please send me your staff. I would love to have them
Yeah.
work. That is extremely fast. Someone actually just posted, and she's a super sweet lady. She just posted in the group that she got an Amazon Medium truck and she was complaining about it. Now in her defense, I know she's been screwed in the last couple weeks on multiple vendors. Guys just not even sending her product. So I think her like patience was like gone.
Yeah.
But I asked her, I was like, how many pallets have you been through? She said two. And I was like, well, you had 26 on the truck. You can't judge the truck based on two pallets if there's 26. I was like, I don't care who you bought it from. You have to get through the load before you can.
Yeah.
There's sometimes where I tell people, listen, if you see a discrepancy, call me. We'll have a conversation, but I'll still ask you to go through the truck before you doing anything because you have
Yep.
to. It's the law of averages. I mean,
Yeah, if I think it's gonna be bad, usually you get a message that says, "Hey, I'm just giving you a heads up. This isn't what I thought it's gonna be.
yeah.
I'll circle back when I'm through it." It might be later that day. It might be 3 days, depending on what kind of merchandise it was to get through it. We've gotten through whole loads in 2 hours before, and we've gotten through loads in 5 days. It just depends on how big the items are and, how many of the same items there are, I guess, more or less.
No, for sure. I mean, and it's that's a good point. It's a simple text like, "Hey, I've noticed this. I want to go ahead and put it on the record that I do see something off, but I didn't call you cussing you out before I got the truck unloaded."
Yep.
There's ways to handle this where I guarantee you when you send that message and you follow up 3 hours later, you're getting a resolution versus someone this is what would happen. They'd cuss me out, and the next day they'd go, "Hey, I've got to apologize. This wasn't as bad as
Yep.
I made it sound." And
And
I
and
going,
it
I
puts you in and it puts you in a better negotiating mood too. If I'm just like, "Hey man, just a heads up, maybe start doing a little background on your side to check this out," you know what I mean? And then maybe I do get a hold of you the next day and said, "All right, it was pretty rough." But at the end of the day, if I come at you with that tone versus, "Hey, this was not what I expected. How much are you giving me back?" There's a right and a wrong way to come to me and try to make it right. Obviously, I want to make it right. You want to make it right. Like, just start off on the right foot. We're all understanding. You know what I mean? Like, just like in my case, and I sell it to a customer, I assumed it was all there. The packaging wasn't even open. Like, I didn't realize that they cut it open and retaped it the same exact way to send it back out. You don't,
yeah,
I don't care who you are. You know what I mean? Like, we start looking, toilets is a big thing. You go through, they always set the toilets aside and they call me to go through them. And I'm like, all right, sounds good. So when I come down here, I might go through 20 or 30 toilets. Well, I'm taking them out of the boxes. I'm looking, rubbing your hand over, looking for cracks. Well, on the 17th or 18th toilet, they all start looking the same and you start missing some cracks. You know what I mean? Like, that's fine. Bring it back down. Let me get you swapped out. Like, I'll toss this one away. Or, oh, you just need a tank? Let me grab you a tank out of one of these ones. Here you go.
yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, it's surprising. It's easy to make it right, especially the
Yep.
retail level. It's easy to make it right at both levels. Where it gets to be difficult, and I think, a lot of the load buyers don't understand when they're buying from a broker, and we touched on this earlier, is you know what their markup is. And I know most people know what their markup is because there's a couple guys out there that, hammer it into people. The margin on a broker should be 500. Sure. I don't disagree or agree. Like, what you make is up to you. I always tell people if I'm content with the buy, then I don't care what you made. Now it's tough on an unmanifested load to mark it up super high and it be fair, but I've got deals where we've marked it up 6 times the money, but you were content. You bought these air conditioners at 30% of retail. Why does it
Yep.
matter if I paid 2%?
Yeah.
You're happy with 30, you got brand new air conditioners. But when a broker's making $500 on a Target load, or God forbid the Dollar General's been, making the rounds, the last few months, I know these guys were making $150 because I know what
Yeah.
they were sourcing. I know what they
That's
were paying.
Dollar General and Walmart are two that I've had eyes on, and I'm just like, I
Wow.
just can't bring myself to do it. Like, I've heard too many horror stories, and I'm like, I'm just not ready. Like, I mean, unless it's a smoking deal, like I'm just not ready because, like you said, you know that when it is bad, like, what are you doing? You know, it's not your fault. You know, I've read it. I did my homework. I know why I'm not buying it. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just like, you know, I've seen some Costco stuff where they do a decent job grading their returns. And, you know, we bought some CD returns and they've been phenomenal. We've also bought some CD returns where you're like, man, this stuff's all going to the dumpster. You know, like it is what it is. Like you're taking that chance, you know, when you do that. But I appreciate that they do graded returns. You know, a lot of these places, even, you know, Home Depot now separating from in store returns to their .com returns, you know, it makes it easier as a buyer because you can pick and choose what percent you're comfortable paying, knowing one way you're getting a better product and the other way you might be still getting the same product, but you're taking a lot bigger chance on getting that same quality.
For sure, you can pay a higher premium for the online returns with the understanding that most online returns have a way better chance of being new,
100%.
or a cheaper price on the in-store. Now, this is on that topic, I guess, but, Home Depot, I don't know if you guys have seen it up there, but they've changed their return rules on the gas-powered product.
Okay.
I've seen the difference on the turbo trucks when they come in. We don't see any, like, so they have so many days. If you put gas in it, it sounds like you're supposed to be screwed from their website. Like once you put gas in the tool, they don't take it back.
It's your
Uh,
problem.
yeah. So I don't know if you've seen that at all up there.
We
Or if you,
haven't. We actually don't have a Home Depot in our town, surprisingly.
oh, wow,
We got Lowe's and Menards, but we don't have a Home Depot. Our close Home Depot is like 60 minutes from here.
got it.
Which it's good and it's bad because we sell a lot of Home Depot stuff and especially cabinets. It's hard to be like, hey, I know you can go get one of these. You know, if you're missing this bridge cabinet for your, you know, microwave, like you can get it at Home Depot. The good thing is they're really affordable for shipping and all that stuff. They do a lot of stuff for free as long as you're getting certain stuff. We haven't really messed with the turbo stuff in the higher loads. Usually my sister cheers towards a lot of the more manifested stuff or pictures versus kind of buying blind. We know they're better loads, but at the same time, like she likes to minimize on at least if she buys a load like that, it's more of this is my fault. I thought those items were going to sell. I seen it. You know what I mean? Like I seen a picture of that vanity and it didn't look like it was damaged versus, you know, here's a load for 10 grand. You know what I mean? Like you get what you get. Yes, it's better product, but this is what you're getting. She likes to see more of, okay, I really need vanities right now, or I really see some outdoor furniture that I can move, you know, kind of thing. So she tries to be a little bit more hands on, I guess, with that stuff. So we don't mess with those quite as much along those lines.
Yeah. No, the turbo can be tricky. Earlier in the year, it was really good. We were getting a lot of gas product for the turbo price. But it can quickly go the other way. You can get some really crappy turbo trucks if you're not careful. You get a lot of furniture, and some people love furniture, some people hate it. But when you're doing home improvement, a lot of people just want home improvement items, and I don't think the furniture always fits super well with it.
Yep.
But yeah, I think I was just curious 'cause a lot you can see the changes a lot of these retailers are making to the return policies. Was Harbor Freight's another one where I don't know if you guys have messed with Harbor Freight at
We
all.
haven't.
But back when we first started, we could always pick up gas. So they separate it by tools, they separate it by gas product.
Okay.
Uh, and the biggest issue everybody always had with Harbor Freight is they had inflated manifests. So like Harbor Freight, you go on their website and they have a generator. They have a compare at price and it's like a Honda generator and they have their price. Well, on their manifest, they would always list it at the compared at price. So we're paying based off the compared at price. Well, they finally fixed that issue, but they increased their percentage they want people to pay. But over the last 2 years, California's changed some laws about the emissions and stuff
Yep.
and about gas powered tools. I actually um back to the Home Depot people, I heard from them the next few years, Home Depot California, and I guess it'll slowly spread, will stop selling gas powered tools altogether, and go straight to battery operated only and
Interesting.
electric. So I'm curious to see, how long that takes to, it'll happen in California first, I'm sure, and then it'll.
Is that where most of the Harbor Freight stuff comes from?
So Harbor Freight, yeah. So you have California and you have South Carolina. Dillon, South Carolina, I think it's LA. But it used to be just super heavy. They always wanted to sell you a gas load if you bought a tool load. You couldn't just buy a gas load separate. You had to buy if you're buying it direct. Um, and there was always enough gas to support that. And now, like the amount of gas loads on the market, it takes 5 loads of tools to support 1 load of gas. So we're seeing less of that product on the market, and it's one of two things: either Harbor Freight is changing their return policy to not allow that stuff back, or the manufacturers are getting better about making a better quality product. I don't know, but we're seeing. I just see all this changing, right? I see the industry changing all the time. And then stuff disappears. I don't we, back to you said something about Walmart and TRG, the Recon Group, the direct liquidation. I don't know what they go by anymore, but they
It changes every day, I feel like.
like whatever floats their boat. Um,
100%.
but they obviously the Lowe's, they had the Walmart for a long time. I don't know if they have Walmart anymore or not. But they used to, I think they still do to some degree, but they used to categorize certain loads and certain pallets. So we used to buy oh, we used to buy electronic pallets, okay?
Yep.
Like Walmart electronics, 4 foot tall. This is back before bin stores became a thing. And I know that because we used to sell like the Gaylords at $5 an item. That's all. We just drop the pallet and say $5 because we were paying 2% of retail. We were paying $250 for a 4 foot, like a true 4 foot Gaylord of Walmart electronics. We would sell them by the pallet for 5 and 550. Today, those same pallets are $2,000 to $3,000. But they're still out there.
Yep.
Now we would also get truckloads of floor jacks, like car jacks. Blackjack, I think was the brand. You can't. I don't see it. They're gone. Like they still sell them at Walmart. They're not on the liquidation market at all. You can't like they're just not there. Where did they go? These people like the manufacturer might have gotten smarter. They might have found a way to export the goods. Walmart might have found a better way to handle the returns. I don't know for that
Yeah,
specific.
part of me wonders if stores get smart about what they're reselling. Like, oh, we got this DeWalt tool back. Like, let's check it real quick and let's just put it back on the shelf. Like, let's not send this off for liquidation purposes. There's nothing wrong with it, or this
Yeah.
was never open. A lot of times when you get stuff in the liquidation, you're like, oh, this hasn't even been touched. Like, why didn't this go back on the shelf? So you wonder if that's what the companies are starting to do, and obviously it would make sense, to save them some money, but you never really know, I guess.
No, I think we're gonna start. I'm shocked that we haven't seen. You start seeing the Amazons opening up the Staples bin stores, and we've posted about this a couple times. Where, obviously Staples is a big drop site for Amazon returns. At least
Yep.
I don't know about. I'm assuming Iowa,
Yep.
um, but now several of the Staples stores, and I think they're doing it in districts, but they're having bin stores inside the Staples from those returns. So instead of having
Okay.
to ship them back to Amazon, they're just doing what we're all doing. They're cutting out the middleman. So
Saving the freight essentially.
even all the freight, which I'm honest, I was just talking. I don't know who I was talking to about this, but like I'm honestly surprised all of the emissions hasn't been a bigger issue because you figure they ship it to the distribution center, it goes to the store, goes to the customer, comes home, goes ships back to a return center, back to a liquidator, back to like it gets moved so many times. I'm surprised like the green people haven't had a bigger stink about how much waste that is, and these retailers haven't started opening up small sections of their stores to be discount, box damage. I don't
Yep.
think it would take Walmart, Target, any of these people that much effort to do that. We'll see. I'm curious. Yeah, people get all
Yeah.
upset.
And that's where we are a lot of times, and I'm guessing probably why we haven't messed with Harbor Freight much because we're in the Midwest, obviously, and sometimes it's two, three, $4,000 depending on where it's coming from to get a truckload shipped to us. So it's like, yeah, cool, I got a good buy at that 10, 12, 15, 20%, but by the time I tack shipping on there, now I'm 30, 40, 50%. So it kind of rules us out of a lot of certain retailers, I guess, until they get the distribution centers closer to us. So a lot of the places we buy, they have them in Chicago or in Indianapolis isn't bad for shipping. Obviously, Chicago we can really do good with because it's 3 hours from here. So it's nice to get that. Oh, it's $700 to get it shipped to you. Granted, now it's not really $700 anymore. It's more of 1,000 or 1,200 to come 3 hours, which is crazy. But
Insane.
it's a lot easier than that 3 to 4,000 that you're paying to come across the country or even 8, 10 hours.
No, it's the shipping has gotten outrageous. We've got I just I got quoted $700 for an hour drive from
Yeah.
our warehouse in Fayetteville to Griffin. It's 45 minutes. They quoted me $700, and I'm like, I might as well rent a Penske truck and do it myself.
100%.
Like one of my guys can do it. I hate
We
doing that. It takes away from their work, but I'm like, it should
Yeah.
be $3 is
I
what.
have a local contractor that I work for, doing reconstruction, construction, stuff like that. And he's big enough where he's got his own semis and whatnot. So I'll ask him, like, hey man, this load we got to go pick up. It's literally a half hour away from here. He's like, I'll just charge you, 130 bucks, $140 an hour, and whatever it is, it is. And I was like, perfect. You know what I mean? Like, that's great. So if it takes you too long to unload it, it's my fault and not anybody else's. You know what I mean? Like if it sits there, it's a little different, but it's crazy the shipping costs on some of this stuff. And the worst part is like it's one thing if you go to book it on your own and it takes that much, but like if you buy in like B stock or some of these other ones, like they just, hey, it's $2,000. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's what you're paying me. You know what I mean? And it's crazy because you're like, man, that same load's 1,500 or 1,400 to go somewhere else. And you know that not only are they making money off your sale, but they're getting $500-$600 just to send you to a shipper. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, I see that complaint a lot. In the groups, it's always B stock overcharging for the freight. It's like, I don't know, you really have no choice. You just bid accordingly. That's what I tell people. Just bid accordingly. I mean, if they're charging you over, bid $500 less. I mean,
Yep.
that's all you can really do. If you're going to bid on that platform, you just got to expect to pay their rate. And that's really all there is to it. So, I'm gonna I'm gonna flip back to the real estate before we wrap up. I'm sure you're at 6 o'clock here. I don't know what time. What time is it in Iowa? Is it 2 hour
That's
difference?
only five.
Only 5. I wanna go back to the real estate before we wrap up, just because that's, the main reason I want to chat with you is you have that perspective, right? And I think that's super important. What or do you did you have you were you in real estate before liquidation, or was it real estate? Is it liquidation then real estate, or real estate then liquidation?
Um,
Or is it like kind of
so so when I was younger, when I was out of high school, I bought my first home. Kind of a dump. We actually tore it down and then built a new one. I tried to be more hands-on, like learning, like, hey, what can I help you with? Where can I save some money in the future kind of thing? Yeah, I'm not going to save it now because I'm paying you, but what can I kind of cut out? So you started doing that stuff. And then in 2017, my wife and I would have sold our house we lived in and moved. And what we did was we took the extra capital from that and then bought real estate that we could rent out. And when we first started, we just bought single family homes just because I knew no matter what, if I wanted to ditch, I wasn't limited on that market. Like the two buildings behind me there, like it's a pretty strict market. Like there's about 5 buyers in my town that can probably buy those buildings. You know what I mean? And we actually have them on the market now, actually, just in terms of looking to shuffle some finances, build a new see what's out there kind of thing. But we know that it's more select. So we would have gotten, by the time I got in this industry, I had 5 doors, 4 properties. One was a duplex, 3 single family houses that we would have had. And then we were able to obviously, you get in with that assumption, like, it's kind of nice. Like, yeah, I got a good deal on this stuff. And you can use it one of two ways. Like you said, you can use it as I'm going to put nice stuff in my properties and I'm going to be able to charge a premium, or just be able to charge what you're charging and have no issues because people come in and they're like, this is nice. So we kind of used it in that aspect. And then we also used it as, like I said, hey, we've kind of sat on this light for a while. I know it's a gold light, let's make this work in this rental property. You know what I mean? And you kind of turn over merchandise that way. So you kind of use it twofold. A, you're going to make your properties a lot better. And B, you're going to turn something over. Maybe you got 10 of these lights and you're going to put one in and say, hey, I just had a customer buy this, or we just like to tell them that we installed it in our property, because it's one of those things, especially with flooring. We buy a lot of our flooring at they don't have the name brand on the boxes and stuff. So it's a little tougher. They're like, oh, is this going to hold up? Is this? And I'm like, listen, I put this in my rental properties. Here's pictures of it. You know what I mean? Or I install this for people. They like it. This is what it is. So we try to, own it, claim it, show that we have it, and it kind of works twofold. Like I said, you use the merchandise and then you try to use it for marketing, trying to steer in some more people that also want to, flip a property, want to even their own home, they want to make their own home nicer and show that, hey, this is worth it. Yeah, it's not just cheaper, it's still a decent product.
For sure. No, I like that. I think that's a big plus to being able to sell the liquidation stuff in the real estate like we talked about earlier. I think it's to be the last question. I mean, I always say that, and then what happens is you say something interesting, and then I have follow-ups. But new reseller or new person liquidation, and they're starting to think about real estate. What is your advice to them being in reselling or being in liquidation on getting into your first real estate purchase? First purchase, what's your, like, number one thing you would tell somebody?
I would say it's kind of a double-edged sword on the question there. I'd say first, I think you want to figure out, are you looking to do resale where you kind of tie up some of your time, making sure that, it's something like we did where we had to put in the hours. You can hire somebody, but there's not going to be much meat left on the bone for you. So it's a lot of man hours that go into that. Or do you want to get into the real estate first, get a couple properties, get some income flowing where it's a little easier to now I can hire somebody or I can, kind of tweak what I'm doing and adjust kind of how I want to spend or, how I want to devote my time. So it's kind of both ways. It's, hey, which way do you want to kind of put the sweat? You want to put the sweat equity in first, or are you going to put, more of the liquid equity in, I guess, in the beginning? We chose, obviously, to go with the sweat equity. There was three of us. By the time you include siblings and parents and all that stuff, wives, it was easier for us to do the sweat equity. Then it's nice too because you can also look at properties that might need a little bit more work. And yes, the upfront costs, you're like, oh man, that's going to take a lot. But at least you're saving that material cost where you're able to use your own stuff. So I guess it really just depends what the person is looking to do. You get those people that they're more hands off and they're probably going to want to go with the real estate first to kind of get that bankroll going. And then, if they're not going to want to be in the people every day kind of thing, they might want to have something kind of set up where that doesn't have to make them a ton of money. They're going to use it from a merchandise standpoint to make their properties better, and that's how they're going to benefit. So it kind of determines what you're looking to get out of it, I guess, is each person's kind of going to be different.
For sure. I think something that, I looked at it from so I started I always say we, and people are always like, "Who you doing it with?" I'm like, "Nobody." I say we because no matter that it's all mine. I've always had people around that have helped. So there's always we there, but it's all, it's everything I have is it's 100% mine. But when we started, and the we would have been at the time my ex-wife, it was kind of a two-part. We started reselling. I was working for my dad making $10 an hour back in 20 whenever. Now, to be fair, we were living in his basement, newly pregnant and married at 17, so you can imagine. And I was like, I
Hectic.
don't want to do we're sitting there, budgeting, and you should still budget no matter what. You should always budget and know, like, your finances, but, like, budgeting to, like, we have this much money to go to the store with. We have to make this $50 stretch. This is how, like, we, meal prepped and froze meals. And, I had that experience for the first 2 years of adult life, so I've been there. I've done that. I got the t-shirt. I figured out really quickly, I hate that aspect. I didn't want any of that. I wanted to be able to, like, buy without having to, like, worry about it. So the people that watch and you're in that, you're there, it's like, you don't have to be there forever. There is a way out. I'm proof. I get you when you get to a certain point, people are like, oh well, you got lucky or you had this, and I'm like, well, no, I was a teenage pregnancy. Like I had the son at 17, right? Like I'm like the poster child for my life should have been different. But I looked at her and she wanted to get out of my parents' house like as soon as possible, which fair. There's only
Yep.
so much of your in-laws you can take. Shit, there's only so much of my parents I can take. I love them,
100%.
but like,
It's nice. It's nice because there's people to help, but at the same time, you're like, oh, you're always here. You know what I mean?
but
Like,
yeah, and dad's not one to like. He knocks, doors open. There's no
yeah,
he
there's
still
no,
in the basement. He needed to get to it. Um, She really wanted to get out, and we were finally, like, 2 years in, we were finally starting to, like, make some money. We could afford to buy our own house if we wanted to, and I said, "No, I don't wanna do that yet. I wanna buy enough real estate, so when we buy our own house, the real estate that we own pays for ours, and then there's a safety net there of, if I get hit by a bus, at least I know you don't have to work right away. You have that income coming in, and we've kind of built, or now I don't have now, it's not her anymore. But I have that same outlook as we grow and we buy more properties. I look at it all as a little bit of a safety net. I refuse to buy all commercial. We've got a lot of commercial now, but because I got tired of the residential side of it, like the couldn't grow it fast enough. Like you start with something, you learn it, and then you go, okay, well, how do I get bigger? I did that with liquidation. I did that with real estate, but I like to own a lot of it outright. And then there's some I like to borrow from banks. I like that safety net of it. I don't want to loan out on all of it, and I don't want to own all of it outright because it's really hard to grow when you're paying cash for everything. Sorry,
Yep.
Dave Ram. I like a little bit of a mix. Um, but I do believe in safety nets, and I've had that my entire life where I'm like, I don't want to get too over leveraged or get too far where I might get tripped up. So, um, to answer this, I guess to answer my question that I asked you and people getting in is if you're in liquidation, you're getting ready to buy real estate, you don't have to, you don't have to buy the nicest, buy the dump, buy the
Yeah.
ugliest house on the nicest street. You're in liquidation. So, you have the opportunity to get the product to make that house really nice. And if you're really handy, then even better. I am not handy in the slightest. I have tried. I've given effort.
Yep.
Um, Suck at putting any. I built a chicken coop a few weeks ago. It looks great, but like trials and tribulations, it's not me. I can learn it, but the amount of time now, and I talk about this more than anything else. The amount of time, if I can learn it, I could do it. I can lay floor. I've laid floor,
Yep.
right? And maybe I save $1 a square foot on 2,000 square feet. By the time it takes me to lay that versus paying someone else to lay it,
Yep.
I could have at least made more than the 2,000 I paid them, and that's what's important. Is like, and in
Yeah,
the
and
beginning,
that's where
you can't do that.
we get, doing the construction side for a lot of people is we tell them like, listen, you can do this. Like, you just tell me what you want me to do for you. But at the same time, like when I come in with a commercial paint sprayer and you're painting everything one color and I can be out in 4 hours, or you could paint the whole place in 4 days, like you got to pick and choose, the quicker I get done, the quicker you're getting money coming back into your pocket, kind of thing. So that's what you got to realize, like sometimes it's just easier. Hey, I'm saving plenty of money on the merchandise by, buying a dump that I'm going to, have the cabinets and the flooring and all that stuff for. And that's a good enough win for me. Like, accept that and then realize, like, hey, if I hire this out, I'm going to get a whole month's worth of rent sooner, or 2 months worth of rent sooner than if I do it. So, yeah, you might have paid that guy 5,000, but if you're getting 2,000 back right away, like, plus all the time you spent making other money, you're probably ahead in the long run. So that's another thing too, obviously, to tell people as they get in, like, definitely weigh it out, look at it. Yeah, that guy might be charging you, but at the end of the day, he's charging you because he's going to do it quick. He's charging you because him and his guys are going to get in there and they're going to take care of it. And you can continue doing what you're doing, whether it be selling more merchandise, to have more cash freed up, or buying more stuff, or just kind of what you're doing. But usually, if you're not as handy, accept that, don't be too stubborn. Don't be too, prude about it, accept it and realize, hey, this can still work. I can still make a lot of money doing this. I just have to be smart.
Yeah, no, it's funny that you said the rent thing because I argued with my dad about this. He had a house and he did it himself. He's like, so I don't know when he finally finished it, but it took him 6 years because he did it himself. Now, dad already had, 7 or 8 rental properties at the time. And I made fun of him like later, they got older and whatever, but I was like, at the time span that took you to do this one by yourself, and maybe you saved some money.
Yep.
Like, I bought X amount of properties I'd gotten tenants and, like, everything stacked away. I'm like, if you did the math of all the rental income you lost in those 5 years versus just paying the professional 30% more than you
Yep.
saved,
Be in and out.
you would have made that up 3 times already, and so, like, you gotta weigh that 'cause I mean, listen, and I was the same way the first property we didn't have the money, right? Like,
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
16
Your
grand on a
first
down
one,
payment.
your first one's definitely going to be different. Like it's going to be a learning curve, and that's what a lot of people got to know. Like the first one's not going to be easy because you're going to be painting, you're going to be trying to learn how to lay flooring. Like, yeah, it might take you 2 weeks to lay all the flooring, but at the same time, that $1,000 you save, that's the difference in losing money. Sometimes so you got to put a lot of that sweat equity in, but then too going forward, like okay, now I'm going to lay flooring the next time. Is it going to take me as long? Am I going to be a little quicker? Or no, that was probably about right. That was hard. That's
Yeah,
something I want to hire out. So it's good and it's bad, especially for the first one to kind of get in there and get your hands dirty, because like, hey, okay, now I'm cutting corners. Now I'm going to cut this. Now I can do this. Or, hey, maybe you put all the cabinets in and you were quick at it. You're like, okay, now I know I can swap out kitchen cabinets and, it's not as hard as I thought it was going to be, and I can really make my properties look nice and make it really easy to get that rent that I'm looking for.
yeah. Well, you should also, I suck at it all. Like, I can't paint for anything. Like, but I know I've done it enough times now to know when someone does a good job and when someone does a crappy job and what to look for. And I think if you don't at least try to learn yourself, you're doing yourself a massive disservice because you don't, when someone goes to talk to you about a quote or, an issue, you have to know, at least understand the basics to know you're not getting
Yep.
fleeced.
Yep.
You're agreeing to something you don't even, like, you don't know anything about,
Yeah, or don't need, and that's the problem too. And when you first get into real estate, it's like buying a car, taking your car to the mechanic. You're always going to have that guy who's trying to sell you, well, technically we should probably do this, this, and this, and they're always trying to add stuff on. So another thing would be is making sure you get a couple quotes on something when you actually get to that. When you're to the point where you can hire it out, don't just go with the first guy because he's nice and all that other stuff. Make sure you're getting a second, third, fourth quote. And I always tell people, like, hey, just so you know, like, I got a couple more people coming to look at this, so that way they know and hopefully it keeps them honest. You shouldn't have to keep them honest, but I mean, it's an unfortunate world. Obviously, we see it all the time, just people taking advantage and trying to upcharge for stuff that they're not even doing, kind of thing. So it's tougher, that's for sure.
I always recommend not getting quotes around the first of the month. For whatever reason, I notice the quotes seem higher around the rent time, and I get it, but I'm not in it. It's not my problem to pay your rent. I'd also tell people, and I constantly make this mistake is the cheapest person's not always the best, and the most expensive person's not always the best. Like, find a group of guys that you do well with, and like try to keep the same guys, but also even like 'cause we get a group and they're good for a few projects, but you got to keep them honest. The first project they're going to do great on. The second project they're going to do okay on. The third project, if you're not keeping an eye on it, they're going to get sloppy because that's just the
Yep.
nature of people. They're going to push and see what they get away with. But
Yep.
the sooner you can find a good team that works and understands you, the better. I mean, that's what we struggle. We still struggle with it. Is just finding a good group that comes in and can do most of the work, do a quality job. A lot of our stuff, we have some nice properties that are short-term rentals that I want specific people to do work on because I'm charging $500 a night or
Yep.
whatever. I've got Section 8. The Section 8, I don't care if you do B work. Like, it's okay. I will accept it, and I want you to reflect that in your quote. I'm not
Yeah,
gonna nit
I want to make sure the price I pay is off of that, and that's
Correct.
another thing too for people buying. Like, know what you're gonna try to get. Know it. Hey, I'm going for a super nice rental, or hey, this neighborhood's an okay rental. Like, I don't need to have my nicest best stuff in there, or my nicest best work. Not saying you want to do a bad job, but know that obviously will reflect in what you're looking to pay going forward too, or like you said, who's gonna go in there and do that work for you.
Yeah, for sure. So I said that was the last question, then I had a follow-up. I am curious because so we of the well, we use for our separate businesses, 3 of our buildings that we own, we use them ourselves. The retail uses 2 of them, and then where we operate our wholesale liquidation, like the land and load uses 1 building as well. We have a real estate holding company that owns all of the properties. We pay ourselves market rent. So the retail pays rent, the wholesale business pays rent to our retail or to our real estate company. Um, it, I'm curious, what everybody does. Does your liquidation company own your building and you just kind of call it a wash, or you pay the mortgage, or do you do it separate and you guys pay yourselves as a way? Because I use it, like, I'm pulling money out. I want to pull money out of my business as, like, as much as possible. That's like, again, I look at it as a tool to pull
Yep.
capital from. Um,
Yep.
I'm always looking for different ways to pull money out. I'm just curious what
So
everybody.
my sister deals with a lot more of that financial than I do. I do know, like, when we first started, as far as pulling money out, you're like, nope, it's back in the business, back in the business, back in the business. We have separate LLCs. We have one LLC that owns those two buildings behind me. We have another LLC that was left over from when I sold my rental properties, that we bought the building that we currently use for liquidation. And then we have another LLC that rents from that building, if that makes sense. And then what we did was, recently we got with our accountant, and our accountant had told us it's actually better to give yourself a paycheck week to week. Well, we do bi-weekly, but bi-weekly, give yourself a paycheck, than just lump sum pay yourself. So, and I'm guessing each person's going to be different, you know what I mean, based off of what they're looking to get out of it. But he flat out told us, like, hey, just so you guys know, you're better off taking a paycheck weekly than being like, hey, it's the end of the year, here's 40 grand,
Condition.
you know?
Yeah.
And actually, he's actually real good. He'll get a hold of us and be like, hey, you guys did pretty good. So, yeah, that's how we gave ourselves raises. Like, it sounds stupid, but at the same time, like, why lose it? You know what I mean? Like, if I'm going to lose it, I might as well give it to myself, or, find the loopholes to, like you said, pay yourself to rent. There's
Yeah.
those interesting things, obviously, without having an accountant. You don't learn those. And in the beginning, maybe you don't have an accountant. You're doing it a lot yourself. You're trying to save that little bit of money, but maybe it's not the little bit you're saving that, you could be costing yourself actually in the long run. So I would recommend reaching out to an accountant and saying, hey, can I have a couple hours of your time? Will you charge me for a consult? Or, some guys won't even charge you. They'll, give you thoughts and all that stuff. And then that's where we figured out, like, hey, we're kind of leaving some money on the table here. Like, we're kind of messing up. So especially for the newer people that are just getting into this, like, definitely don't leave that stone unturned. I'm not saying go crazy and go to payroll and all that stuff right out the gate, but have a goal, have an end game. Like, hey, when we first started doing this, it was just sweat hours. And then, all right, hey, we're going to start paying ourselves. And it wasn't much when we started paying ourselves. It was like 12, $13 an hour. And mind you, this was like 22 or 23. Like, I don't even know if that's minimum wage. You know what I mean? Like, so nowadays, you're saving, but you got to start somewhere. And that's how we looked at it, as it was a positive thing. Like, hey, we're going in the right direction here. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just, hey, this business is paying for itself. Now it's a, hey, I'm paying myself. And like you said, you're trying to pull money out. And in the beginning, it's a little harder. You can pull money out if you want. It just takes away a lot of your flexibility of buying the semis, or, hey, that money's always there and I don't want to put it back in, because once you put it in your account, you don't want to take it from your account and put it back in the business account. That's what's always tougher versus, getting that business account established where, hey, I bought all these loads. I bought this semi. Ooh, this deal came up. I don't got to dip into my personal account. I know that nest egg's there and I can do it and get it turned around quickly. Is kind of how I'd answer that one.
Yeah, you the first few years, it like you said, it's a good point. It's a sweat equity. You have to reinvest. You're not going to start a business today and pull cash out tomorrow. It's just not how it works.
Yep.
Uh, it's important to realize that in the beginning, like, time is going to go on before, and we still operated in a way where I have a floor. The business has to have a certain amount of cash at all times, and that's like, I have my comfort level, and anything under that, okay, it's all I can do. We're doing deals to get that money back to where it needs to be, and then after that, it's how can I pull money out the most advantageous way possible to us, which, again, this will be the last time I mention it, but real estate once again plays that role, because there's so many tax advantages to real estate that you can take advantage of. It seems silly not to do it, especially if you're in liquidation, if you're in resale. There's so many loopholes inside of real estate to put your money in, to save money on the tax end. We do a lot of that with cost segregation studies. We've gotten, the money we've made from our liquidation, for up until this past year was all an LLC. So, it transferred onto my personal taxes just like my real estate did. So by leveraging our real estate, we've been able to really mitigate our tax liability. There's a lot of loopholes, there's a lot of stuff. And to your point, yeah, go talk to an accountant. It's worth
Yeah, there's
and
loopholes that, you and I probably still don't know about that a different accountant knows about. And it's one of those things like you talk to as many people as you can in this industry, and find the ones that'll help you. There's not ones that aren't looking out for your best interest. You just gotta figure out, which ones are willing to help, which ones are willing to stick a little time into helping you learn and kind of going that route, I guess.
percent.